and good afternoon, everyone. If you could please take a seat, and as my father would have said, let's get this show on the road. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Heather, and I'm Ray and Barbara's firstborn. As such, it's my job today to MC this event and to sincerely thank you all for making the time to come and support Barbara, Mum, and all the members of the family through this period. Rawhide, in case you're wondering, was the song that Dad used to play every Sunday morning. It was either that or a tune from Paint Your Wagon to get us all out of bed. He put it on the stereo full bore until every one of us was out of bed. If he was up, we had to be up. Whilst reflecting on Dad's life and trying to come up with some introductory words, I pondered the things that have been passed down the black side of the family and the things that Dad took seriously. These are some, but not all, of the black family rules. Number one, that a cup of tea or coffee is not a real cuppa unless it's accompanied by a biscuit or a piece of cake. Number two is that if you can fit the biscuit in your mouth without biting it first, you should do so. Number three was fishing must be an all-day event or it doesn't count as having been fishing. And Dad's comments on the events today would have been, what a waste of a good fishing day. A shirt is not a shirt unless it has a breast pocket. That if you can cheat when playing cards, you must do so. Bagging out family members is okay, and you know you've been accepted as part of the family when we bag you out. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. You always address older people as Mr. or Mrs. until at least 10 years after you've turned 21, and even then you can only call them by their first names if they invite you to do so. If you can convince someone to join you in doing a task, then there's only half the work. And the final one was that even if you don't agree with family members, especially over politics or religion, you still put up with them and show up when they need help. I'm sure that every family has some form of these, along with family legend tales. Today, various members of the family will share some of the family legends and reflections on Dad's life. On behalf of Dad's brothers, Robin and Neil, I'd like to introduce you to Neil's wife, Auntie Kay, who will share some of their memories of Ray as a child, teenager, before that was a term, and as a member of the Black Clan.
My name's Kay, and thank you again for coming. This is Neil's words that I'm speaking. He starts out, my big brother Ray. Raymond Sidney Lyle Black. What a title to live up to. Dad's Christian name and Mum's family name. A few little tidbits of his life. In the late 40s, we moved to Orbost and Dad started a bike club. The family had great excitement when Ray won a race. I think he was about 12 years old. It just happened that Dad was the handicapper for the event. We moved to Trafalgar and lived in a house called the Ducky Gable. And this was a home until the wind gust blew the house down. Only the clothesline saved the house from complete destruction. About this time, Ray was having difficulty at school, so Mum and Dad agreed that he could leave when he was 13. He secured a job as an upholsterer in Trafalgar, but in Dad's spare time he taught Ray to drive the dragline excavator, and he developed a new skill. Other workers called him a smooth operator. This skill enabled him to secure a job with the Housing Commission. When he was about 19, he came to Dandenong and joined the council. Very soon, Ray could operate all the machinery at the Dandenong Council. And subsequently, he became the senior operator. And this required him to drive the council's biggest semi-trailers and, of course, the spectacular Caterpillar bulldozer, the council's most expensive purchase. This was real speed. In our early days around Dandenong, Ray was the original Mr. Cool. Even before sports cars were trendy, he had a fabulous car. A two-door Chev coupe with an amazing dicky seat on the back. Nothing quite beats sitting in the dicky seat and riding down the main street of Dandenong, calling out to anyone and everyone. It was fabulous. One day Ray came home with a Panther motorcycle, subsequently joining the Dandenong Motorcycle Club, and he developed a great love for bikes, much to Dad's concern. Before long there was a beautiful AJS twin, and to top it off he had a Velocette scramble dirt bike. Motorcycle scrambling was the craze in those days. Venues like Cranbourne and Druin, and I had an important job on his racing team, like handing him a towel or cleaning his goggles. Mind you, I never saw him win a race, but he was often out in front until a spectacular fall. But he would get back up and usually finish at the tail end. I joined the council, and Mr. Wright, the council engineer, took a liking to the black boys. This is what he called Ray and I. Encouraging both of us to better our education, he sent us off to night school. Ray loved civil engineering night school, and all the council engineers jumped in and helped with the homework, securing excellent passes. When Ray retired, he had worked his way up the ladder to end his career as the big chief, superintendent of works in charge of all outdoor staff. He was also good to the family, such as 2 days before I got married, my car needed an overhaul, and I had pulled it down to replace the piston rings and other bits. On returning from my honeymoon 2 weeks later, I found the car running like a Swiss watch. Ray had worked nights and repaired our car. Another time, I went to Perth by road and returned to find the foundations of our house all dug out, ready for the slab to be poured. Thanks, Ray and Barbara. This was Ray. Get on with the job. Mum and Dad were very proud of his achievements. And I can say my big brother lived his life to the full. He was a good man. I already miss him.
Thank you, Mona Kay and Neil and Robin for sharing those memories. Before I ask my brother Stephen to share his recollections, just in case you ever hear any of us refer to cool mints as budgie eggs, that's because Dad put cool mints in the budgie cage trying to convince us that the budgie was laying eggs. However, the joke was on Dad when a few weeks later the budgie did start laying eggs. I've lost my brother. Stephen will now share some of his recollections. Oh, there he is. It's because he's all dressed up.
No shorts and thongs. Well, some of you will be surprised to hear that I'm not renowned for being a great public speaker. Well, at least not until I've had a couple of Carlton Spa waters. But I would like to say a few words and share some of my memories about Ray as my father. My earliest memories are down at the old Dandenong tip, sitting on Dad's knee while he was driving the drot. That's a type of bulldozer for the young ones that don't know. Another early memory is waiting at home by the front door to see if Dad had brought home any tadpoles for me, which he sometimes did if he was working on the drag line. And that's like a cross between a crane and an excavator for you young ones again. Speaking of the tip, we never went or knew what town, and we'd end up inevitably at the tip. Every local tip we'd see. Not that we ever wanted to go there, we would just happen to end up there. I would love to go fishing with Dad, and sometimes I would see his father in the old Wanda, the Bolero, which Neil would remember. That was Sid's boat. And I can remember the council social club days at Will, and being with my grandparents on the old burnt bridge where poor Ray would have his patience tested. Old Sid would get his fishing line tangled and Dad would have to come to the rescue. And while he was there untangling instead of fishing, I would be yelling out, "Stevie boy's got another one," just to rub it in. I remember one particularly challenging time for Ray when my mother cast the whole rod and reel into the drift. You can just imagine the steam coming out of his ears. There were many memorable weekend adventures with Dad, and skin diving down at Flinders and Cape Shank with Robin and Neil, Dad's brothers, and the many winter weekends traipsing the hills of the Strzelecki Ranges, fox shooting with his mates Ian Webb, Jackie Maynard and Jimmy Bellingham and their boys. Sometimes we'd go away with our neighbours, Trevor and Kevin, and sometimes with Henry Nicholson and his son, who was my mate Jeff. And we would go shooting and fishing and fish for freshwater crays in the many creeks in the hills. I feel like I have to mention Dad's cricketing prowess. In his mind, he was up there with the likes of Lily and Tomo. They're famous Aussie cricketers for the young ones. But the reality was a little different. He didn't come home one day with a trophy. It was a golden Donald Duck money box. Not sure how proud he was of the Duck Award. However, it did take pride of place next to the phone so that us kids could make a donation every time we wanted to make a call. At least the kids of the neighbourhood got plenty of practice bowling with him. The only time I saw my old man cry was once when he got out of his brother's plane, and at the end he got down and did his best impersonation of the Pope and kissed the tarmac at the Melbourne airport. That was truly when we knew about his fear of heights. The other time was when he came home and collapsed in the hallway after the Ash Wednesday fires. That must have been very traumatic for him to experience and for all those involved. I have some great memories of my dad, and I learned a lot about life, family and friendship and the tips. Maybe he was a bit harsh on me at times because I was the boy, and he was a bit, or a lot, softer on the daughters. Maybe I was a bit of a bugger sometimes as a little kid growing up. He set high standards and he expected a lot. But he did, okay. He was my dad, and thank you for all that he did for me.
Thanks, Stephen, for that trip down memory lane. Dad's relationships with his grandchildren were interesting, from the young days of bouncing on the trampoline at the farm through the teenage years where Dad's idea of what teenagers should be doing and what they wanted to do were poles apart. Dad was not in favour of technology, unless it was being used to find out something he wanted to do or to have happen. Ironically, the family have heard from people we lost touch with years ago, thanks to the powers of Facebook. Dad had difficulty coming to grips with the fact that not every grandchild liked to spend all day fishing or had an active interest in Australian native birds. Regardless of this, rule number 7 still applied. You showed up and you put up when you had to. Rebecca, Stephen and Terry's daughter, will now give us some reflections that she and Jeff have put together.
Thank you. I don't know how to just hold it up. I stand here today on behalf of my brother and I to honour the memory of our grandpa. I wanted to share memories of love and warmth, but when I think back, what I remember most about grandpa were the lessons he shared with us. And perhaps that was how he showed his love. He taught us to leave things as you found them. If the gate was closed when you got there, you make sure you close it behind you and don't you dare let him catch you riding it. Arithmetic? What's 7 8? 56. He'd ask us every time. Bureaucracy? Because I said so. Fire building and the role it plays in life, death and growth. Cultural appreciation, civic duty, community, and a pride in where you came from and your work. A lesson taught on a sunny morning, sitting on the gumboot box polishing apples. He taught me how to call the livestock home with a very deep and firm, "Come on!" and how to summon my best mate Winnie, the dog, with a whistle. He taught me that death really is a part of life on the farm, and grim acceptance to face it. By coming out to my very distressed calls of, "Grandpa, something's wrong with Henny Penny." Our poor hen was upside down with her feet in the air. He put a big, warm, calloused hand on my shoulder, and he said, "She's finally kicked the bucket, Becca." Then he grabbed her foot and tossed her well out into the paddock. Looking back at my shocked little face, he said, "The foxes will eat well tonight." And headed back inside. My favourite recollection, though, was sitting by our campfire on a misty afternoon when Grandpa gave us our Indian names. I was to be Princess White Dove and my brother, Jeff, Chief Blackboot. It's the only time I can really recall Grandpa doing something like that. Just spending time with us that wasn't work, a meal or a lesson. But on that note, with grim resolve, may the foxes eat well tonight, and may you find your lasting peace. Our chief at the fireside, our grumpy old Bart, our tutor, and always our grandpa.
Thanks, Rebecca. Now it's Emily, one of Judith and Rob's daughters, to say a few words about her and Ruby's reflections of Ray as a grandfather and a great-grandfather. Thank you. I'm Emily Coop, Ray's favourite grandchild. Well, that might be slightly contentious to say, but as Grandpa always said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Ray, or Grandpa as I knew him, was a character, and whilst I'm really sad that he's gone, I'm also so very grateful for the time that we had with him. I'm grateful for the weekends and school holidays at the farm, where as a child he'd often quiz us on our times tables and making sure we got them right. I'm grateful for the card games, the stories, and the often slightly racist jokes. For the tricks he taught us, like a quick distraction to pop a whole biscuit in your mouth, seemingly defying the physics of the size of the biscuit and the size of his mouth. For the tractor rides and the fishing trips, even the one where Ruby and I nearly died. I want to talk more about that, I think. I'm grateful for the Christmases and Easters where Grandpa would inevitably end up taking a nap on the couch after the meal was done. He was a stubborn, strong-willed man, and with that came fantastic discussions and debates. When I was in high school learning about governments and politics, I remember having some strong political